The first time I made a murderer cry, I didn't mean to say the words that broke him. The arraignment chamber is all glass and cold light, a fishbowl for human and not quite human nerves. Rain smears the city into a watercolor beyond the windows. Wet wool and ozone ride the air. Pens scratch, papers whisper. The bailiff smells like damp leather and peppermint. The defendant smells like iron and fear pretending to be swagger. He stares at me across the table, chin lifted, eyes wolf bright. They always try the stare first, as if looking harder will undo my degree and my spine at the same time. I rest my folded hands on the table, and let the silence do its work. My name is Dr. Teyl Arden, I say. Forensic psychiatrist, court appointed. I'm here to evaluate competency and risk. A muscle ticks along his cheekbone. You're an omega. That is a category, not a diagnosis, I answer. Voice even. Let's keep to the terms we both understand. He grins. Too many teeth and not enough humor. I understand plenty. He doesn't. He understands power when it's loud. I prefer mine quiet. The prosecutor taps a folder, the judge clears her throat, and somewhere in the gallery a cough ricochets against glass. The room is sterile by design, but underneath it there's a low thrum, animal unease thrashing its tail under the bench. I can feel it along my skin, like static before a storm. Mr. Cole, I begin, reading his name from the file without looking down. Walk me through the 20 minutes between the alley camera and the apartment stairwell. No. Because you don't remember, I suggest. Or because you don't want to. He leans forward. The chain between his cuffs dings the table leg, a bright, stupid bell. Because I don't talk to leashed dogs. This is where most people flinch. The insult is unoriginal. But it hits the right hallway and turns on all the lights. I look at him the way I look at complex puzzles. Interested, not impressed. Competency requires you to answer basic factual questions, I say. This won't be one of them. I should ask whether he recognizes the judge, the charges, the structure of the court. I should keep it clinical. Instead, my attention hooks on a micro-tremor passing through his right hand. Not fear, not hunger. It vibrates under the skin like a tuning fork struck by someone else. Not a someone. A command. The words rise in my mouth the way a scent rises from paper when you scrape. The surface, not learned, but remembered from a place I can't point to. They taste of cold metal and something older than law. I don't intend to speak them. I do. Vesio, the syllables curl through my mouth, decline. Stand down. The effect is not cinematic. It is embarrassingly small. The tremor stops like a cut wire, and his eyes, bright with defiance, blur wet and stunned. He sucks a breath around a sound that could be a laugh or a sob, then folds over his cuffs like a plant finally relieved of someone's hand. The gallery whispers. The prosecutor forgets her pen. The judge looks at me as if I've set something on fire. I blink. My tongue goes dry. My pulse beats once, twice, under the old pale lines at my wrist where nothing should ache anymore. Dr. Arden, the judge says carefully, as if I'm cracked glass. What did you just do? Grounding technique, I say before my better judgment can get up off the floor. My voice comes out cool. He was dissociating. Looked like magic, the defendant mutters hoarsely. Tears slick his lashes. He's more embarrassed than relieved. I know the sensation. Coincidence, I say. I will not taste those syllables again. They are a key that's found a lock, and I don't like what that implies about the house we are in. The door at the back opens on a fragment of rain and a colder scent, cedar burned close to the bark. A man steps in with the kind of quiet that reads as authority even before he shows a badge. He's tall, the line of his shoulders military neat. His jaw has a white scar across the bone like a hyphen the world left behind mid-sentence. He scans the room, and the room tries to look like it wasn't misbehaving. Chief Rem Calder, the bailiff, murmurs to the judge, like introducing weather. Calder's gaze lands on the defendant, then on me. It does not stick, it assesses, catalogs, moves on and back again. Alphas like him are taught not to look too long. It counts as pressure. Still, the air tightens half a notch. The judge invites him forward. The prosecutor, recovered, starts to object to something, changes her mind, sits down. I keep my face calm. Inside, a small, weary part of me writes the inevitable script. He will either try to use me as a lever, or lock me in a drawer. Do you often hypnotize witnesses, Dr. Arden? Calder asks once we're recessed to an anteroom of glass and low voices. His tone is mild, the words are not. Only when they interrupt me, I say. It is a risky answer. I don't know how to do the safer ones when my skin still remembers that word. He doesn't smile. A corner of his mouth does, and almost. Clever, clinical, I correct. Convenient, accurate. I fold my arms because it keeps my hands from climbing to my wrist, to scratch where a ghost is making itself known. Calder glances at the file under my elbow. He doesn't try to take it. Points, instead. You marked a pattern on the first incident that the original report missed. The tremor. Stimulus linked, I say. Not voluntary. Commanded. His eyes meet mine. They're that deep police blue uniforms pretend at. By what? If I had the answer, I would have put it in the report, and saved us both the air. I tilt my head at the window where rain runs slow, bright tracks. Do you need me for anything else, Chief? The court still needs my notes. He considers me the way you consider a piece of equipment you don't recognize, but suspect you might need. I need your cooperation. You have it, I say. Under the usual conditions, no contamination of the interview environment. No unauthorized touch, no scent marking in confined spaces. One of his eyebrows lifts as if it's considering a career change to a different face. You set boundaries like you expect people to ignore them. I set boundaries so that when people try, they run into something sharp. That gets a ghost of a real smile, quick as a blade catching light. We're reopening the last 6 Omega assault cases with unusual scarring. You'll consult? I already am consulting. With me, he says. As if the preposition matters more than the verb. Ah, I say. Territorial grammar? That almost smile again. He doesn't take the bait beyond that. Briefing after the hearing. My office. Lovely, I say. I adore new rooms with locked doors. He watches me for a second longer than strictly courteous. Not to flex. To ask a question without words. What did you say in there? I don't answer it even silently. I don't know who's listening. The hearing stumbles through its remaining steps. The defendant, subdued to the edge of sleepiness, answers competency questions like a good boy who hates himself for it. I make my notes in a neat small hand, because neatness is armor. The judge gavels us to administrative purgatory, while the lawyers feed on paperwork. When the room empties, I stay long enough to watch the rain. It presses its face to the glass like something wanting in. If I breathe shallowly, I can almost convince myself I imagine the taste of the word in my mouth. Almost. The corridor back to the precinct offices is a vein of polished stone and fluorescent hum. People look past me the way you look past an X-ray, aware of the skeleton, not the skin. I prefer it. My shoes click. My coat breathes against my collar. The scent of cedar is faint now, a climate that departed with its weather system. Dr. Arden. Calder's voice follows, low and designed not to bounce off walls. I stop because it would be childish not to. And I'm saving my childishness for better opportunities. He falls into step. Your testimony was precise. That's the goal. It was also... He searches a moment. Chooses a word that won't get him cited. Effective. Terrifying works too, I say. I won't be offended. Did you intend to do what you did? I look at him. If I ever intend to make someone cry, Chief, you'll know. I keep moving before he decides to press. He doesn't. He's not a pusher. He's a door that locks and unlocks and expects you to guess the code. At his office, he gives me a time for the briefing and a stack of files I already pulled digitally 2 hours ago. He's testing whether my need for control will make me bristle. It does. I don't show it. We part with the brittle courtesy of men who could be friends if they weren't also problems. I step back into the hallway. That's when it hits, heat under the skin, a flare like a match struck too close. It comes from my left wrist, the inside, where the veins lie blue and exposed. There's nothing there but pale skin, and the thinnest lattice of old, almost invisible lines, healed years ago, if you believe the surgeon and the mirror. The burn crawls outward, whispering up the tendons, a phantom brand waking to a word it recognizes. My breath shortens, not fear, recognition. My body remembers something my mind does not, and memory always thinks it's doing you a favor. I draw my sleeve down, covering the place as if modesty works on scars that don't exist anymore. The rain, patient and relentless, keeps talking to the glass. Somewhere behind me, an office door closes with a soft click, precise. As a period at the end of a sentence I haven't learned how to read. I tell my feet to walk. They obey. The interrogation room has the charm of a bunker. Gray concrete, glass that reflects, too much, and a single strip of light that hums like an insect you can't swat. Somewhere in the pipes, Water drips at an interval calculated to test patience. Every sound folds back on itself. Every reflection doubles what's real. From some angles, there are 3 of us in here, me, Rem, and the version of each we pretend not to be. The suspect sits shackled to the table. A broad-shouldered alpha with a neck tattoo, and a stare that wants to bite. The file says his name is Rem Vale. Prior assault charges, small-time pack enforcer. Today he's our person of interest in the case of an Omega found 2 nights ago with a burned subordination mark still smoking on his skin. Rem stands beside me, arms crossed, silent. He's letting me take lead, or testing how I handle wolves when they smell blood. I open the folder, but I already know the contents. Photos of the victim, sigil-shaped burn marks at the base of the neck. Neural degradation visible in the scan. I slide one across the table. Recognize the symbol? Goran glances, smirks. Looks like art. I'm not into branding. You have 3 of your own, I say mildly. Left shoulder, inner thigh, ribcage, all unauthorized. He grins wider. You checked everywhere? Rem shifts, the faintest exhale through his nose. A warning. He doesn't like the direction. Good. I tap the table. Once. You were seen near the docks on the night of the attack. Security footage, low resolution, but same build. Limp on the right leg. He shrugs. A lot of guys limp, especially after the service. You weren't in the service, I say. You failed the screening for aggression control. A low growl hums through the metal of the table. The glass wall throws the sound back twice as loud. I meet it with calm silence. I've always believed nothing infuriates a predator more than being stared at like a math problem. Rem finally speaks, voice even. Goran, we can make this easy. Tell us who's supplying the mark rigs. We know they move through the lower docks. Not without a deal, Goran says. You think I'm suicidal? I lean forward just enough that he notices. I think you're more imaginative than suicidal. There's a difference. He sneers. You think you scare me, Doc? No, I say. I think you scare yourself. That hits. His nostrils flare, the cuff chains clatter. The scent spikes. Rage, fear. The chemical tang of control eroding. The perfect storm I wanted. Because when fear surfaces, the tremor follows, and I see it. Right hand, index twitch, same microspasm as the last case. I lower my voice. Who's giving the commands, Goran? Who tells you when to stop shaking? His breath stutters. The tremor grows. There's a pattern under the muscle, as if something invisible is puppeting the nerves. My heartbeat syncs with it. Rem steps forward. That's enough. I don't stop. Say the name, Goran. I said that's enough. Rem snaps, his hand hitting the table. The sound breaks the trance. Goran jerks, bares his teeth. You see? He gets it. He's an alpha, you're just... Finish that sentence, I say softly, and I'll diagnose you with stupidity. Goran lunges. The cuffs strain but hold. The guards rush in. Rem raises a hand, halting them. He moves close, commanding without shouting. His scent floods the room, cedar and cold restraint. Sit down. The words vibrate like a physical force. Goran freezes, then obeys, panting. The tremor stops, replaced by the blank stillness of someone whose instincts remember hierarchy even when his mind doesn't. Rem turns to me, voice low but sharp. You were provoking him. That's how you learn what triggers the mark. I match his tone. You don't get data from polite conversation. You don't get data if he tears your throat out either. You were ready to shoot him if he moved 2 inches closer. Don't pretend you weren't. His jaw flexes. You keep thinking I'm here to control you. You keep acting like I need it. We stare. 2 wolves trying to decide which one blinks. The glass behind him doubles the scene. 2 silhouettes locked in mirrored argument. Reflections whispering that we might look better on the same side. Rem finally steps back. You're reckless. And you're predictable. I'm alive. So am I say. For now. The silence after stretches thin. The suspect mutters curses into his cuffs, but neither of us looks at him. There's an odd, charged quiet between us. Not hostility anymore. Something tighter. Rem's eyes flick over me, cataloging my breathing, the dilation of my pupils. He's assessing, maybe curious whether I'm shaken. I'm not. If anything, I'm curious. About him. About why his control feels like a question instead of an order. Rem breaks first. We'll continue later. File your notes. He leaves the room with the precise efficiency of a man who doesn't like being observed thinking. The door clicks shut. For a moment, all I hear is the dripping water and my own pulse, still synced to Goron's tremor. I turn toward the one-way glass. The reflection stares back, two of me, overlapping. Except, there's a third shape, faint, standing just behind. A man's outline, shoulders broader than mine, head tilted as if whispering something I can't hear. I pivot, quick. The room is empty. When I look back, the shape is gone. Just the reflection of my own breath fogging the glass. I replay the security feed later, in my office. The angle catches Rem walking past the corridor, speaking into his comm. Then, a second figure, blurry, limping slightly on the right leg, moving beyond the camera's range. The same gait I saw in the previous footage. The same scent ghosts across my memory, smoke and salt, and something heartbreakingly familiar. It curls through my throat like déjà vu. I pause the frame, zoom in. The pixels refuse to give me a face, just the rhythm of that limp, steady as heartbeat. My hand drifts unconsciously to my wrist, rubbing the spot where the phantom burn once lived. Behind me, someone knocks once on the glass partition. I turn, no one there, only my reflection again. For a second, it doesn't move with me. Then it does. The light flickers overhead. Somewhere down the hall, water keeps dripping, counting the seconds I don't yet understand. The industrial district wears the rain like penance. Rusted stairwells leak down brick, graffiti bleeds neon into puddles. And wind threads the alleys with a sewing needle made of cold. The whole place smells like wet iron and old electricity, like a storm forgot to leave. Rem's convoy ghosts in along the loading bay. 2 cruisers idle low. Ilya and his squad fan across the concrete with the choreographed competence of people who don't like surprises, but live off them anyway. Mika jogs beside me under an umbrella that does nothing for my height and less for my patience. New attack reported on the scanner, Mika says, breath fogging. Anonymous call, male voice, no accent or synthetic masking. Said, and I quote, "He's not listening anymore." Then he hung up. Not listening to what? I ask. Command, Mika says, face twisting. Probably. Rem's voice cuts through comms, fan in a 5x5. Ilya, southeast approach. Mika, hold central and run a live scrape on any cameras facing inward. Doc. I know, I say, and step out of formation. The look Rem gives me from across the lot is not surprise. It's a ledger line, drawn dark. He doesn't call me back. He notes the disobedience, stores it. It's almost polite in its way. The alley behind the shuttered foundry is a throat of corrugated metal. Rain ticks against sheet steel like impatient fingers. I crouch by a dark smear near the drain, touch gloved fingers to it. Not blood. Too thin. Too slick. The scent rises, sharp and wrong. Cold iron braided with something chemical and faintly sweet, like burning anesthetic. The same scent that ghosted my memory yesterday. Older. Hungrier. Mark residue, I say into comms. Recent. They used heat to seal it. Sigil burn. Someone did it fast and dirty. Direction? Rem asks. I close my eyes, inhaling. Under the rain, under the rot, under the warehouse breath, there's a thread. It isn't visual so much as gravitational. Pulling through the bones of the building, up through the stairs. Roof, I say. Negative, Ilya cuts in. We clear ground first. Clear your ground, I say. I'll take the roof. Doc, Rem says, with a patience that makes my teeth itch. We move as a unit, then move faster. I don't wait for the reprimand. The metal stairs are slick and narrow. My gloved hand sings against the cold rail. My wrist prickles as I climb. Phantom heat fluttering under the skin where nothing should be. It's not pain. It's weather. Lightning flattens the sky white as I shoulder open the roof hatch. The city shivers, every edge rimmed in rain. Up here, the wind has opinions. It tries to shove me back into the stairwell. I brace, step out, and let it push through my coat. Puddles shimmer like tarnished mirrors. He's here. Or was. The residue coils in the air like smoke does in your clothes. My body recognizes the pattern before my mind agrees to the memory. A cadence of steps, the weight distributed to avoid a right leg limp. Familiar, like a song you hated and danced to anyway. Rem arrives 3 heartbeats later, boots quiet even on wet metal. He doesn't speak at first. He steps past me, scanning corners, the edge where roof meets night. He's presence and perimeter in one. Everything inside his reach feels mapped. He angles a look at me that says both, "Why are you always first, and thank you for being quick. You seem very certain." "Smell doesn't lie," I say. "People do. Often. Expensively." He approaches the nearest air vent, crouches, gloved fingers tracing the lip. "Residue pattern?" "2 sets of hands," I say. One pressing, one holding. The second set, smaller, matching the victim profile. He nods once. His calm crackles. Mika reporting negative movement on the lower floors. Ilya complaining about blown lights. Rem answers without looking away from me. Hold positions. The roof's hot. Rain needles the back of my neck. I tilt my face up to breathe the cold, and the flash comes with the inhale, memory like a blade sliding out of a sleeve. Not an image. A sensation, a hand closing around my wrist, thumb on the inner pulse, words like a strip of ice drawn against heat. Stand. Sleep. Kneel. Each command eating a little piece of me, and calling it obedience. I stop moving. Water runs inside my collar, down my spine. My fingers have found my wrist without permission. The skin there is smooth. The skin there burns. Arden. Rem's voice is close. Your breathing changed. Yours didn't, I say, because Petty is a flotation device. It keeps me near the surface. He steps in front of me, not looming, blocking the wind. He smells like rain on cedar, and the kind of control that isn't for show. His gaze drops to my hand on my wrist, then back to my eyes. "Are you not afraid of alphas?" he asks, quiet enough that the calm won't pick it up. I consider lying. "I'm only afraid of memory." Something flickers in his face. Understanding, respect, or the awareness that if he says the wrong thing in the next 5 seconds, I will move past him and off the roof, just to prove that I can. He shifts half a step closer, not touching, anchoring without anchors. "What do you remember?" he asks. "That someone taught me to confuse obedience with safety," I say. "And that I was a remarkably good student." Lightning reaches for the antenna with a laugh we can't hear. The space between us narrows to the width of a breath. I don't know who moves first. Maybe neither of us does. It's just the wind pressing us together, the force of physics pretending to be intimacy. Over comms, Ilya swears. Movement, northeast corner. Rem is away from me, and moving before my next breath. I follow, not because he commanded, but because I've already mapped the angles in my head, and we're the fastest route between them. We track the scuff of a boot along the parapet, the skipped rhythm of a right leg. Step, to the corner, where a maintenance ladder sheds water like a waterfall. A shadow leaps the gap to the adjacent building, lands wrong, corrects. Limp. There, and gone. "Don't," Rem says. Which is what a responsible man says when a less responsible man is about to do something cinematic. "I wasn't going to," I say, already calculating the trajectory I will absolutely take if the gap runs out of options. But the shadow doesn't wait. It blends with rain and smog, dissolves into a city that keeps secrets the way old buildings keep warmth. We stand looking where he was until looking becomes a kind of prayer that the world refuses to answer. Rem rolls his shoulders once, letting tension settle in more useful places. "You were right about the roof. I usually am." It's infuriating. "So I've been told." He glances at me, and it isn't irritation anymore. It's something that admits incompetence in exactly one arena, deciding what to do with me. "You're shaking." "No," I say. My voice is steady. My fingers are not. He shrugs out of his jacket. It's a clean movement, economical. He holds it toward me, not close enough to brush my chest, not far enough to be impersonal. The rain clings to the fabric, a darker navy than the night. "I'm not cold," I tell him. "It's not for cold. What is it for then?" "Wait," he says. "Sometimes wait helps." He's not wrong. That's the irritating part. I take the jacket and slip into it before my pride can file an objection. It settles across my shoulders, like something I should have anticipated, and didn't. The scent blooms warm, cedar, paper, the faint harshness of gun oil kept fastidiously clean. It slots into my lungs like a puzzle piece, and for a half second my body mistakes that stability for safety. The difference is important. I repeat it to myself the way you repeat a phone number you can't afford to forget. He watches me. Doesn't comment. We start back toward the hatch. The wind presses one last cold kiss along the back of my neck and lets me go. "Thank you," I say finally. Because I was raised by someone who believed in the economy of words and the surplus value of the right ones. It smells like control. His mouth does that almost smile, quick and sharp. That your way of saying it suits you? It's my way of saying, I'll give it back. You'd better, Rem says. And the humor is there, bright under the rain. It's regulation. We move down into the stairwell, where the air is warmer and the damp concrete breathes out the day. Below, the team resettles, orders crackling through the comms like distant thunder. I keep my hand off my wrist by will, and by the weight on my shoulders. Human, I remind myself, in an inhuman night. Then I remind myself again, slower, because memory has sharp teeth and excellent aim. We don't break in so much as slip between breaths. The clinic's research wing is a brick relic with new money grafted onto it. Security cameras, that blink like bored owls. Keypad locks with fingerprints smudged into useful patterns. Mika handles the owls. I handle the patterns. It's charming you think I can't get in through the front door, Mika whispers, laptop hugged to her chest. Curls escaping a beanie that says no gods, only logs. The night smells of wet leaves and disinfectant, a hospital's idea of romance. I think you like the challenge, I say, because flattery works on anyone who lives inside a command line. She smirks. My love language is root access. Inside, the corridors are long and a little too warm. The lights are dimmed to a bureaucratic dusk. Somewhere, a cleaning bot whines, mourning a spill, no one grieved properly. We keep to the walls, shoes quiet, bodies quieter. My wrist itches the way it always does when light hits polished floor at this angle. Memory and geometry, a poor couple, relentless together. Mika's voice is a thread. The public registry lists a defunct grant, S Omega. Letter S, Greek Omega. 5 years ago, shuttered due to ethical incongruities. Those are the best kind, I say. Ethics congruent with what? With outcomes, Mika answers, fingers dancing on her keys as she paces us through a security panel. Also, I bribed their firewall with a vintage screensaver, and a promise to stop insulting its SSL choices. The archive is in the basement, a door with a frosted window that says study storage in a font so timid I want to give it a snack. Inside, dust has learned how to settle in hierarchies. Metal shelving, bank boxes with handwritten labels, the occasional medical chart still smelling faintly of printer heat. The air tastes of paper and old latex gloves. Mika kills the overheads and clicks on a desk lamp, warm and conspiratorial. The circle of light makes the rest of the room look like it's holding its breath. Project SO, she says, scanning labels. Look for unusual indexing. Research people think creativity equals hiding things under other things and lying about cross-references. Something we share, I say, pulling a box marked audiologs, post-op. The first tape hisses at me in a familiar key, white noise, a metronome buried inside it. My skin tightens. I put it down carefully, like it might ask for my wrist. Mika hums triumphantly from the next aisle. Found a weird one. The folder she hands me is labeled in neat archivist handwriting, auxiliary, spindle data. Inside, a subfolder in sharper, slanted script, SO, subject series. A rubber band keeps it closed because irony doesn't sleep. I break the band. The top photo is of a teenager standing too straight in a hospital gown, hair clipped short and careful, gaze steady like he taught himself how. Someone has written SO-17 in the corner with a pen that meant it. He looks like me. I have been prepared, in theoretical terms, for the possibility of running into myself. Theory is very polite. Reality is less so. My fingers leave a crescent in the paper's edge. I smooth it, as if that undoes the mark. Mika is careful to look at my face and not at the photo. She does a lot of work with her eyes that way, usually to comfort, sometimes to memorize. Tonight, it's the first. Breathe, she says softly. I answer. My voice is regular. My hands are not. Under the photo, typed pages. Cognitive correction stable. Behavioral dependence on commands. Controllable. Someone underlined controllable twice, not with excitement, with relief. The margin notes are surgical and euphemistic. Subject demonstrates accelerated pattern acquisition, reinforces alpha-Q response arrays. Dissociation protocol yields increased compliance. The words line up neatly, a crime scene posed for a camera. My shoulder muscles tighten around each verb. I don't think this is the part where we joke, Mika says, even though her mouth tries to. No, I say. This is the part where we read. We do. We read until the lamp heat wakes moths in the paper, and the room smells like summer, in a place that had none. We read about scent locks and counterphrases, about how to strand an omega, in surface calm while routing their will through a foreign spine. We read names of doctors who will claim later that they were following orders. We read one command fragment that itches at the back of my teeth like, a word I know but can't say without calling something to heal. The final page is a discharge note. Subject 17, field ready. No signature. The line is blank, as if no one wanted to be the hand that owned the consequence. Arden, Mika says. It's my name, but it sounds like a place. I realize my grip on the folder has gone white. I set it down. The desk creaks. I tell my hands to act like they are mine. They practice. Footsteps in the hall outside pause the moths mid-flight. Mika snaps her laptop half-closed and kills the lamp. We exhale into darkness, the map of the room redrawn in shadow. The door handle turns, slowly, like a polite burglar. Rem steps in with a cone of brightness from the corridor. The light finds his shoulders first, then his face, carved in weather and intention. The scent of rain follows. He must have come straight from the roof, from the city's wet lungs. For a beat, he takes in the tableau without speaking, the half-closed laptop, the folder, bleeding old paper onto the desk, my posture betraying surprise only in that I'm still. Of course it's you, he says, and the words are equal parts relief and irritation. You should install better owls, Mika says from behind a shelf, as if this is a social call. Yours didn't hoot. I rehired the budget, Rem says dryly, eyes not leaving me. What did you find? Mika looks at me. I nod once. She slides the folder toward him. He picks it up, flips through. He does not react visibly to the photo. He does stop on the phrase behavioral dependence, controllable, and underlines it, with his gaze like he wants to set the ink on fire without creating a record. His voice is quieter when he speaks. You knew? If I knew, I say, I wouldn't be here, because knowing implies consent. Something moves under his sternness. An anger I recognize, not at me. You could have called me. I could have, I agree. But I wanted to be in the room first. He relieves us of the door by shutting it carefully. You're not supposed to be in any room here without clearance. That's why we turned off the lights, Mika offers. So the room wouldn't see us. Mika, Rem says, patience bending toward humor for her and snapping back for me, out. She hesitates. Are you going to arrest him? No. Are you going to arrest me? Possible, he says. And Mika flutters like a offended sparrow. I'll go, she says, touching my elbow as she passes, pressure quick and real. Ping me if you need extraction or snacks. The door shuts again. The archive settles into a sound like thinking. Rem stands across from me at the desk, the folder between us. His gaze is not invasive. It's rigorous, like a safety inspection for a bridge everyone has to cross. If you're hiding something, he says, tell me yourself. I would, I say, if I knew what it was. We look at each other across the paper ghost of a boy with my mouth and someone else's future. He's not asking because he suspects treachery. He's asking because information saves lives, and he has a ledger where lives go. Why here? He asks finally, tapping the margin. Why this clinic? Convenience, I say. Funding, proximity to the dock routes. And because people who do this work need old buildings that won't argue with new crimes. He breathes out through his nose. I'm angry. I noticed. Not at you. I noticed that too. That's worse, he says. It's almost a joke. Almost. We leave with scans, not originals. Rem carries them like they might bite. On the way out, he relocks every door we softened. It's a small act of mercy, the way you straighten a chair after you've broken up a fight in it. The night outside is colder. The parking lot is a riveted sheet of shadow. A single lamp mixes insects with snowflakes that aren't snow. The rain has thinned to a suggestion. We stand under the overhang while the world does what it wants. Rem leans a shoulder to the brick, jacket dry now over his shirt, hair a little darker for the damp. I keep my hands in my pockets because they are not performing well unsupervised. If you're a risk to this investigation, he says, voice steady. I need to know now. If I were, I say, I would have run. I'm very good at that. I believe you, he says. And it isn't sarcasm. I also believe that running isn't your plan this time. Don't assign me a plan I haven't agreed to. He tips his chin toward the folder. You were built to agree. It hurts because it's true, and because he says it like a fact that wants to become a lie. I look past him at the yellow cone of light where insects tattoo the air. The lamp hums. The night speaks in drier vowels. I was built to comply, I say. Agreement is a choice. The astringent of the word hangs between us. He nods once, like he's filing it in a drawer, marked use this carefully. I'm going to keep you close, he says. Is that an order? A strategy, he says. And a request. And your request is? Don't make me find out from a file folder who you are. The sentence lands with the softest possible impact for something that heavy. I look at him. The scar at his jaw has paled with the cold. It draws a line where he ended and survived. If I figure it out, I say, you'll hear it from me. Good, he says, and pushes off the wall. Briefing at 9. Try to sleep. That's a charming myth. Then try to lie down and close your eyes until the world edits itself, he says, deadpan. It works for me. It would, I say. The corner of his mouth answers before he can. He leaves me to the night and the box of moths I carried out of the archive in my chest. The clinic's overhang gutters whisper about structural failure. I start for my car and stop halfway because the air changes. A pressure shift you feel more than hear. It folds in through my ears, rides my blood like static. Stand. The word isn't a sound. It's a posture I remember better than my own handwriting. It tilts my body toward it. I lock my knees on principle. Sleep. My eyelids flex toward compliance. I hold them open, the way you hold a door when wind wants to take it. Kneel. My wrist burns, sudden and clean, flame without flame. The old lattice under the skin flares like a constellation. The parking lot swims. Somewhere far away, a car starts. Somewhere closer, a footstep touches water. Not today, I tell my ribs. Because that's where the commands try to right themselves when they can't reach the brain. The pressure ebbs. Leaves the aftertaste of iron and antiseptic on my tongue. In the glass of the clinic door, my reflection is a fraction delayed. It catches up, and we agree to pretend it didn't. The night inhales like it's proud of itself. I get in the car, put my forehead against the steering wheel for a count of 8, and make plans I don't tell anyone, least of all myself. The cafe doesn't have a name so much as a rumor. It lives under a rail bridge where the city's bones show through. Bricks sweating tar, rivets like dull teeth. Inside, the light is the color of old honey and bad decisions. Smoke curls in lazy hieroglyphs above chipped tables. The place smells like spilled whiskey, singed citrus, wet fur, and 1,000 small truces. I sit in a booth that used to be a church pew. Across from me, the wood has been carved with declarations of love and boredom, a taxonomy of people who thought knives could make permanence. My fingers find one of the grooves, and the muscle in my wrist remembers being held there. I press my hand flat on the table, until the urge to pull away becomes a readable sentence. Vox arrives late, which is very like him. He still moves like a hymn hummed under breath. Careless, precise, dangerous, in ways no one taught and everyone learned. Leather jacket, threadbare at the elbows. He smells like cigarette paper and winter apples in a particular kind. Of kindness that always comes with a price tag turned face down. Teyl, he says, and then again softer, like the name might leave if he doesn't give it reasons to stay. His mouth finds a smile that almost fits his face. You look tidy. Occupational hazard, I say. You look like a man who has spent all his money on stories, and none on laundry. He laughs. One syllable, bitten. Still mean. Still accurate. We look at each other the way you look at houses you once lived in. Inventory of cracks. Appraisal of new paint. Quiet grief for the rooms you left light in. He slides into the booth, hips first, keeping his coat on. His eyes skip over the exit, the bar, the corridor to the bathrooms. The mirror behind the liquor. He catalogues the room by reflex. The habit was my ruin and his salvation, then the other way round. Drink? He asks. No. You shouldn't either. Since when do you care what I should? Since always, I say. And I'm as surprised by the honesty as he is. The bartender drops 2 glasses anyway. I breathe around the whiskey and let the memory ride by without climbing in. Vox watches me not drink, and looks like he's limping in a place where he used to run. I heard you were alive, he says. I heard a lot of things, I answer. Some of them true, some of them yours. He flinches. I did what I had to. Don't rehearse, I say. We've both seen the play. Silence finds us. The music is something with a bass line that matches the building's heart. A beta at the far table counts cards with the same expression I use to count lies. Vox folds his hands. thumbs worrying a scar on his palm. I'm helping people. You're funneling them, I reply. Through doors you don't own to buyers who do. Not all of them, he shoots back quick. Sometimes I get them out. Sometimes. You don't? His jaw tightens. I don't get to pick which gods are real, Teyl. I pick the exits that exist. My smile is more a baring of teeth. And you categorize them as salvation. How generous. You were a runner once, he says. You left before the end of the sermon. I ran because the sermon wanted my knees, I say. My hand drifts to my wrist. I retrieve it and place it back on the table like evidence. He sees the movement, of course he does. His mouth does another one of those almost smiles, cracked to fit truth into it. I tried to save you. You tried to own me, I say gently. You called it saving because you liked the echo. Vox looks away. The mirror behind the bar reflects us as if we're sitting closer than we are. For a second my reflection's mouth moves out of time with mine. He clears his throat. There's a ring moving marks through the docks. Military rigs, black market sigils, old surgeons with steady hands and no souls. You know the type? I know their handwriting, I say. He leans in. They have a buyer who wants you specifically. Everyone is very interested in my brand loyalty this week. No, he says. This time there's no smile in it. I mean him. Ice slides under my tongue. Him who? Vox's voice turns smaller and sharper, like a needle that remembers the first skin it pierced. The handler. He's not a story. He's breathing. He wants his prototype back. The cafe's noise moves away from us even though no one gets quieter. I look at Vox and I can smell the truth on him the way you smell rain before it ruins your plans. Clean metal, charged air, a particular honesty that doesn't ask permission to be believed. You're sure, I say. I'm sure. He laughs without heat. He sent a greeting. I hope he didn't use flowers. Just the usual, Vox says. A courier with bad eyes and a list of names. The kind your throat learns to form even if your mouth refuses. I could tell him he's lying. It would be good for my blood pressure. It wouldn't change the taste in my throat. Why warn me? I ask. He shrugs, which is how he says I care in a language where caring can still get you killed. Because you were the first person who looked at me and didn't count inventory. Because I'm tired, Teyl. Because this is a script I can't stand in without throwing up. Then stop, I say. Turn and keep turning, until you're not walking toward him anymore. His laugh is uglier this time. You think the map lets me? Maps do not exist, I say. There are only people who draw them, and people who refuse to read. He reaches across the table. His fingers stop just short of mine, as if there's a wire there I didn't notice that still carries current. Come with me, he says. We can make a hole and run through it. Like before, I thought you wanted me free, I say. Now I think you want me obedient in a different direction. He lets his hand drop. I never wanted you obedient. Then you're worse at wanting than I remember. The door at the back creaks in a very distinctive way. Territory announces itself. Rem enters with a wind gust and two officers who are trying to look like late-night coffee connoisseurs. He isn't in uniform. He wears authority like a tailored shirt anyway. His eyes find me, and then my companion, both almost on the same inhale. He doesn't show his teeth. He doesn't have to. The air around the table recalibrates to a barometric pressure known as don't. Chief, I say. Doctor, he returns, equally bland. Vox turns to look up at the weather that just moved in. He does it with a tilt of the chin that adds 2 inches to a height he doesn't have. It's a trick. He's very good at tricks. You didn't tell me you had chaperones, he says to me. They're here for the ambience, I say. Rem's gaze skims over Vox the way a scanner skims a counterfeit. Slow enough to catch the seams, fast enough to call it later. Mr. Vox, is it? Depends on who's asking. Someone who prefers full names. Of course you do, Vox says, tipping his head. You smell like policies sharpened into weapons. Occupational hazard, Rem says. And if he stole the line from me I won't sue. I stand before I decide to. Rem's hand twitches as if to guide me, then stills. He is not a man who touches without contract. A flicker of something territorial lights and dies in his eyes, leaving a glow you could argue was only the lamp. We're done, I tell Vox. No, Vox says softer. We're never done. We just pause until someone pretends to forget. Rem's attention slices sideways. You're working for the Mark Runners. I'm working, Vox says, which is an answer in some countries. And sometimes I help your kind by accident. My kind, Rem repeats. Which kind is that? The kind that thinks asking a question to a drowning man is the same as pulling him out, Vox says. And if he wanted to hurt, he struck close. Rem's jaw goes tight. Leave him out of the docks. Or what? Vox asks, delighted for one reckless second. You going to arrest me for sitting near your dog? The heat in my chest is instant and chemical. Rem doesn't rise to it. He doesn't need to. The cafe feels his refusal like a hand on its neck. You will not call him that again, he says, calm enough to make everyone in hearing range rethink their choices. Touchy, Vox murmurs. He looks at me. You didn't tell him everything, did you? There it is. The blood warm cut in the middle of the evening. Because I don't have everything, I say. Because you don't want to, Vox says, not unkindly. If you put it in his hands it becomes policy. And you've had enough of policy. Rem's attention returns to me, and it doesn't feel like a searchlight. It feels like inventory, the kind that worries it might miscount. What is he talking about? I'm talking about the handler, Vox says, bored now, as if he can't believe he's the only one reading the same book. Breathing, buying, and buying him? The officers at the door shift. The bartender suddenly finds coasters very interesting. Rem's nostrils flare, scent sharpening. You're certain? He sent a greeting, Vox says. Details, Rem demands. Not for free, Vox says, grinning with sad little teeth. Then, Rem starts. Stop, I say. This is his stage. He'll eat the curtains if we applaud. Vox's sad grin falters, he bows in that lazy way of his. Always the critic. He slides out of the booth, shoulders rolling. You know where to find me, when you decide you want a map more than a promise. He leaves a slip of paper on the table, and the smell of winter apple in the booth. Rem doesn't pick up the paper. He looks at me. Why here, he asks, very quiet, and why without me? Because I wanted to see if the past still lies the same way, I say. Because some doors close when you bring witnesses. I told you to tell me myself, he says. His voice is not raised. The blow lands anyway. I told you I would when I knew what it was, I answer. I still don't. He exhales. It is not relief. You're holding out. I'm holding on, I say. There's a difference. Not to me. He steps back from the table like the room just shifted under him and he refuses to stagger. You're either in this unit, or you're an informant who thinks he gets to pick his handler. The word shouldn't hit that hard. It does. I flinch, and we both see it happen. Poor choice, he says at once. Regret ghosts across his face, fast and unpracticed. I didn't. Understood, I cut in, because triage is an art. We're tired. We're compromised, he corrects. Both can be true, I say. He looks at me for a long beat, the ledger book wide open, lines waiting for ink. Then he turns, calls the officers with a tilt of his head, and leaves. The door slams with the quiet finality of a good lock, not loud, but absolute. The cafe exhales when he's gone. Vox's paper sits between my hands like a symptom. I don't touch it. I listen to the music pretending to be an alibi, and I wait for the part of me that always wants to run to say something useful. It doesn't. It just breathes fast and counts the exits, and the whiskey I didn't drink smells like a joke I refuse to laugh at. The text pings at 11:14 p.m., a time that feels like a decision you shouldn't make. Dockside substation, Bay 12. Found a pattern key in the mark logs. Come alone. Trust me. M. Mika doesn't write like that. She doesn't lowercase her panic. She doesn't ask me to come alone. She threatens to drag me by my expensive tie and then arrives with a drone army. I stare at the message until the letters tilt and my body does the arithmetic. If it's a trap, it's a good one. If it's real. I'm late. I don't tell Rem. I leave the jacket he lent me on the back of a chair because wearing it feels like a promise I am not sure I can keep. Bay 12 is a warehouse that the city tried to retire, and the dock rats refused to bury. The siding is pitted with salt. The blackout curtains over high windows make the building look like a blind animal trying to remember what light was for. The night smells like old rope and engine oil, and the metal taste your mouth in vents when it wants to warn you. Inside, the darkness is not empty. It's crowded, with shadows layered on scaffolds, with the wet crackle of electricity misbehaving, with breath that doesn't belong to one body. A generator hums somewhere past the catwalks, the light it feeds stutters, a migraine made visible. Every flicker throws the world a half inch to the left, and then back again. Mika? I call. Not loud. Loud is for people with cavalry. Here, a voice answers, female and wrong by a single degree. When I follow it, the wrongness blooms into a familiar silhouette standing just beyond the stuttering. Light. Familiar the way mannequins are familiar when they're wearing your mother's clothes. I know you, I say to the dark. You like edges? Step out or fall off one. The shape moves. 2 men peel out of the shadow first, shoulders like doors. The third arrives with a smell like antiseptic jealousy. His hand is gloved and sure. The needle kisses my neck so sweetly that for a second, I think I imagined both him and mercy. When the floor comes up to meet me, I try to choose where to land. I fail. I wake to a sound that is not a voice but behaves like one. Stand. My body obeys while the rest of me protests in slower languages. I'm strapped to a chair that used to belong to a dentist, and has been promoted to theology. The leather bites at my wrists and ankles with a diligence I recognize from other vocations. Wires rope from contact pads on my forearms up to a box that hums with the smug self-esteem of a machine that knows it can hurt you just by existing. The room is large, skeletal with latticework and catwalks. The generator's pulse threads everything, lights, wire, ribs. The smell is metal and old blood, and the particular sour of fear trapped in fabric. Hello, Subject 17, a man says in a tone that has said good morning to knives. The handler is shorter than some myths make him. Taller than most bad dreams. Middle-aged in the way of men who practice discipline as a religion, lean, elegant, all surfaces washed in surgical light. He wears an old-fashioned tie clip shaped like a tuning fork. His eyes are the color the ocean pretends to be on tourist brochures. I hate them immediately and without nuance. You're older, I say. Because if I don't choose the first sentence, he will. And you dress like a man who still expects respect to arrive by telegram. He smiles, the kind of smile people once paid to see on stage when they wanted to be terrified in public. You still talk too much. That's because you trained me for obedience in all the wrong categories. He looks pleased, which is his default. You remember. I remember pressure. The leather restrains me when I move to scratch my wrist. The itch is ferocious. The old lattice under the skin blazing without heat. Memory is a generous term. He gestures. A tech I can't see adjusts something. The generator tone steps up a fraction. And the pads on my arms speak a language my blood understands. Sleep. I grit my teeth and stay awake out of spite and arithmetic. He watches my eyelids stutter with interest, not triumph. When I force them open, he nods as if I've performed a difficult passage, and he will now write a note to the conductor. I won't ask you why, I say. I already know the script. Yes, he says. You were made to. He steps close enough for the scent of his cologne to locate itself, peppermint and cleanliness curdled by ego. He lays 2 fingers just above the pad on my forearm. I feel nothing through the glove, but my pulse answers anyway. The traitor, you were built to anticipate command, and relieve your handler of the burden of language. An intelligent instrument. Our best work. Your best work, I say, is haunted. He tilts his head. We had failures. We learned from them. We learned most from you. A memory arrives without knocking, a room with glass walls, a metronome chewing seconds. My own voice repeating counterphrases while another voice rewrote the meaning of want. Agreement is a choice, I told Rem. I wonder how you keep a sentence from being stolen by the mouth that says it. What do you want now, I ask. Specifically. We know you want what you always want. He's generous enough to admit it. A control relay. The trafficking network grew messy when we lost you. I don't enjoy mess. You will refine our command chains and amplify them. You will be, he considers and chooses the word with surgical cheer. A pult. I don't laugh. Remote or catapult? Both, he says, delighted. Yes. Language jokes. I do miss you. Buy a dictionary, I say. It's less likely to bite you. He hums and nods to the tech again. The generator sings brighter. The pads whisper up my nerves with tiny teeth. Kneel. My knees can't. The muscles fantasize about it anyway. Microfiring under straps. The world telescopes, then snaps back. In the periphery, shapes move. Guards bored enough to get sloppy, a catwalk without railings, a skylight ribbed with rain. I track every exit with the part of my mind that survived precisely because it catalogued escape routes the way believers catalog miracles. Your brain is still keyed, the handler says, listening to my body with his eyes. The circuits never truly die. They sleep and wait for the correct pitch, We will give it to them. The pitch. That's what the generator is. An instrument tuned to old wounds. Under the noise, another pattern hums. It's not the machine. It's my own head. Something installed and left like a maintenance ladder you aren't supposed to notice from the street. I've felt it for days. A counter-tempo under every order. A place where obedience catches and could, with a torque, reverse. A terrible idea eats its way up my throat. You made me a relay, I say. Relays work both ways. He looks very happy. Only if we let them. You aren't the only one who learned. I close my eyes, not to obey but to isolate the tones. The generator's whine is one frequency. The pads chatter in another. The handler's voice sits on a third, cultured and cruel. Beneath them, my memory ticks at the old metronome rate. 68 beats per minute, the tempo of a resting lie. I speak, not words, not commands. Just breath broken into counts, then into the syllables the body believes more deeply than the mind. I invert the shape he used to make me small. I tell my nervous system to broadcast back. The first flash is pain, white, absolute, the color of rooms without a door. My fingers convulse. Blood beads under one pad. The generator coughs. A light on the control box pops and dies. Stop, the handler says, and the word comes wrapped in music. I ride the music the wrong way. Decline, I think across my own circuits, dragging the syllables through the wires like a net through dark water. Stand down. Turn inward. The pad on my right forearm sizzles. The straps smoke. Somewhere above, a guard swears in a language my body recognizes and my mind cannot translate right now. My teeth chatter. The chair skids an inch under my spasming legs. Stop, the handler says again, louder. Subject. Has a name, I spit, and throw the counter-command like a hook. It doesn't land where I intend. It lands everywhere, because I'm a poor marksman with a bomb. The generator's tone fractures. The lights strobe, then flatline into a deep, ugly red. The guards stagger, one drops to a knee, eyes rolling, as if something in his head just found a command it didn't know it had, and decided to obey it too slowly. The tech slaps the control box. It answers by sparking like a bad idea. Pain becomes a place. I live there for a handful of heartbeats. My body feels very far away and very loud. My wrist is a star. The lattice flares in patterns that hum back. Not yours, not yours, not yours. Metal screams from the catwalk. Then the weather arrives. Rem drops into the room like a sentence that has finally remembered its verb. He's blood from someone else's story, not his. His shirt is ripped at the shoulder where a blade tried to negotiate and failed. He moves through the red light, with a mathematics of violence I would have admired if watching it didn't make my body try to faint with relief. He doesn't shout. He doesn't posture. He removes the first guard with a quiet efficiency of elbow and knee that the man will remember every time he uses a staircase. The second guard raises a gun. Rem's hand finds the wrist, folds it away from usefulness, introduces the man's face to the control box. The box sparks again, and, deciding it has had enough of employment, dies. Arden, Rem says, turning toward me, and there is the smallest crack in the armor of his voice. Not fear. Not yet. Complication. Don't give me orders, I say through teeth that have declared independence. He comes to me, knife flicking from a sheath like a thought that's been waiting for permission. He doesn't cut first. He looks. He sees the tones still alive in the pads. The generator coughing on a ruined rhythm. He flips the knife in his palm and slices the wire to the left pad cleanly. The pain halves. I fall forward against the strap like a puppet between shows. Stay with me, he says, then changes his own sentence mid-air, gentler, like turning a weapon into a bridge. Teyl, come back. Not because I said, because you want to. Want. Agreement. Choice. The words land where the commands were supposed to be. They bloom there like stubborn flowers. I pull the counter-command back from everywhere, and aim it like a prayer at one thing. Stop. My body is trying to stand and kneel at the same time. I give it permission to do neither. The second pad's wire snaps under Rem's knife. The generator winds down like a toy you've finally pried from a toddler's damp grip. The handler moves. He is good. He is very good. He reaches for a second rig, for the old emergency phrase that would flatten me even with no power at all. Rem is faster. He puts the man against the wall with a method I recognize only because I have done it to my own panic. Firm, exact, not cruel. The knife finds the handler's tie clip and nails it to the drywall. The tuning fork sings once, and dies. Try a full sentence, Rem tells him, breath not even ragged. Preferably one that begins with, I surrender. The handler smiles with blood in his mouth. Animals don't respond to politeness. Then lucky for you, I say, voice shredded. We're people. Rem cuts my straps. The chair sighs, the world tips. He catches my weight with one hand on my shoulder, and it doesn't feel like possession. It feels like physics being kind. My legs shake. The floor heaves, the building, the storm, me. I try to say I'm fine and produce a sound that's mostly vowels. Rem is already adjusting his grip, already making room for dignity in a place that ran out hours ago. Count for me, he says, and again he corrects himself, softer. If you want, it helps. 1, I say, because I want to. 2. Good, he says. It sounds like a word he doesn't get to use often. Behind him, sirens skitter along the docks with an enthusiasm Day never feels. Ilya's voice crackles on Rem's calm, half frantic, half furious. Chief? Are you alive? Rem says. He doesn't look away from me. We have the source. Send med and containment. The guards are on the floor. The tech is sobbing quietly into his own hands. The handler stares at me with an interest that reads as worship if you don't know religion is just another word for desire with a schedule. You learned, he says, awed. You made yourself into an instrument we did not plan. I made myself into a person, I say. It won't fit in your notes. The power tries to hiccup back on. The lights throb once, bright and nauseous, then fail. The generator sighs like a tired god, and settles into silence. Outside, the rain decides it has accomplished enough and begins to taper. The last thing I feel before the adrenaline check bounces is Rem's hand. A steady pressure above my elbow, reminding my body which way is up. The last thing I hear is the soft, decisive clack of cuffs around the handler's wrists and a voice that could order and refuses to. Teyl, Rem says again. And the warehouse stops trying to breathe through my lungs. Let's go home. The world comes back to me in fragments. Light through gauze curtains. The hum of a monitor counting. Something it thinks is important. And the soft, sour, sweet mix of antiseptic and hospital coffee. My throat tastes like static. The rain outside sounds like it's trying to apologize for every other kind of noise. I blink, and the ceiling stops swimming. Someone sitting in the chair beside the bed, coat folded over his knee, head bent as if listening for the next catastrophe. Rem. He looks wrong in a hospital. Too solid for a place built on whispers and hope. His sleeves are rolled up, revealing a line of dried blood he hasn't bothered to wash from the inside of his wrist. The sight is strangely comforting. It proves he's real. You're awake, he says, voice pitched low enough not to startle the monitors. I checked, I croak. I think so. He exhales a sound that might be a laugh, or a prayer trimmed down for efficiency. You shouldn't have gone alone. I wasn't alone, I say. I brought all my bad decisions with me. Rem leans forward, elbows on knees. There are new lines around his eyes, carved by something sharper than age. The handler's in custody. Vox gave up the network, routes, buyers, all of it. Said he wanted to make it right. That sounds like him, I murmur. Righteous guilt, inconvenient timing. Your timing was worse, Rem says. You almost died. Almost, I echo. But not quite. Which seems to bother everyone except me. He doesn't argue. Instead, he reaches for the plastic cup on the tray and holds it out. His hand is steady, the way calm water hides a current. I take it. My wrist doesn't burn anymore. Just an echo. Like a healed fracture that still remembers the weather. I didn't command you, he says quietly. I know. I sip, the water metallic and too clean. That's why I came back. Rem studies me. The rain outside softens against the glass. You chose that. I did, I say. First time in years, maybe ever. It was messy. Choice usually is. He sits back, lets the silence fill in the seams. Then, almost awkwardly, we can transfer you to another unit, if you want distance from you? I ask. Or from the person I used to be. He meets my gaze. Either. I shake my head. Neither. I'm staying. Something shifts between us, not heat, not relief, just the kind of stillness that exists after something breaks, and the pieces agree not to fall any further. The door slams open before the moment can settle. Dr. Death lives, Mika announces, sweeping in with a tablet, a coffee the size of her optimism, and enough noise to wake the floor. If you wanted time off, you could have just faked food poisoning, less dramatic, fewer explosions. Rem pinches the bridge of his nose. She's been waiting to say that. I rehearsed, Mika says proudly. Then she sets the coffee on my table. Decaf, doctor's orders. Also, the precinct is gossiping about how the chief stormed a warehouse, alone, and carried you out like some kind of tragic romance novel hero. You two want matching capes or... Mika, Rem warns. Fine, fine. She grins at me. He didn't leave your side for 36 hours. I had to bribe a nurse to make him shower. So, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. My face warms. I hide it behind the cup. You're terrible at subtlety. That's why you love me, she says, already halfway to the door. Rest up, boss. Paperwork waits for no trauma. When she's gone, the room feels a little lighter, like someone opened an extra window. Rem clears his throat. She exaggerates. Only in the unimportant details, I say. Did you really not leave? He doesn't answer right away. You were loud, he admits. In your sleep. I didn't think you should be alone. Thank you, I say, because anything else would overcomplicate it. He nods, eyes on the rain. Vox asked me to tell you he's disappearing. Said he's going to try something quieter. I close my eyes for a second. That's his version of repentance. Silence instead of confession. Will you miss him? I already do, I say. But some people you have to miss from a distance. The rain slows. The window fogs where the room breathes too much. The coffee still smells burned. For once, I don't mind any of it. I shift slightly, testing muscles that feel borrowed. My body listens, hesitant but mine again. The mark doesn't answer. Freedom feels like static fading out of a radio, replaced by the hum of something steadier. Rem stands, straightening his jacket. Get some sleep. There's a briefing tomorrow, but I can stall it if you... I'll be there, I say. On my own terms this time. He smiles, small, crooked, the kind that's rarer than miracles. On your own terms, he repeats. Good. He leaves the room without the usual weight of his authority, the door whispering shut behind him. For a while I just listen, to the rain, to the machines, to the slow, patient rhythm of my heartbeat finding itself again. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolls like an old habit trying to start up again. It doesn't quite make it. I tilt my head back against the pillow, eyes tracing the patterns of shadow on the ceiling. My reflection in the window looks different, not freer, not entirely healed, but alive in a way that feels earned. For the first time and longer than I can measure, I smile. And it doesn't feel like armor. The precinct kitchen always wakes before the rest of the building. Steam rises from the first pot of coffee like a soft weather miracle, carrying the smell of roast and new beginnings through the vents. Sunlight filters through the blinds, slicing the room into neat golden ribs. Someone's left a box of donuts open on the counter, one bite taken from every flavor like an inconclusive experiment. Mika is crouched over the counter with a black marker in hand, muttering to herself. Rem stands at the table, half buried in paperwork, looking like a man who fought a war with bureaucracy and is currently losing the rematch. I hover at the doorway, half amused, half suspicious. What are you doing? I ask Mika. Improving workplace morale, she says, holding up two freshly labeled mugs. One reads Alpha in capital letters, neat and smug. The other, written with dramatic curls, says the actual boss. Rem doesn't even look up. I'm not drinking out of that. You don't get a choice, Mika says. Hierarchy has spoken. He sighs without glancing up. This is harassment. It's branding, she replies cheerfully, setting the mugs down in front of him with mock ceremony. Then she sees me, grins, and tosses me a third cup labeled Menace in a lab coat. Charming, I say. I was going to write Omega of Doom, but that felt a little dramatic for a weekday. Thank you for your restraint, I deadpan, pouring myself coffee. Rem finally looks up, eyes narrow but not unkind. Do I want to know how long this has been going on? 2 hours, Mika says. 3. If you count the donut testing phase. Rem pinches the bridge of his nose. You're supposed to be updating case logs? I am updating them, she says, tapping her temple. Mentally. He gives her a look that could boil water. She grins wider. I settle at the edge of the table, the warmth of the mug seeping into my palms. The air hums with an ordinary rhythm. No sirens, no orders, just the gentle percussion of keys clicking, pages turning, and the world being briefly manageable. Feels strange, I say after a moment. What does? Rem asks. This, I gesture around. Quiet. Normal. You without a weapon. Mika without an alibi. Don't jinx it, Mika warns, but she's smiling. Rem takes a sip from the mug labeled Alpha, and grimaces. She used too much sugar. I like my leaders sweet, Mika says, already halfway out the door. You two hold down the fort. Or glare at it. Whatever it is you do. When she's gone, the silence stretches again. Comfortable, companionable. The sunlight lands across the table in pale bands, catching on the rim of my cup. I notice my wrist in the glow. The skin is smooth, unmarked. The lattice that once burned beneath it is gone, replaced by the faintest shimmer of healed nerves. Rem follows my gaze, then looks away, giving the moment its privacy. You should take the afternoon off, he says. I thought you didn't believe in afternoons off. I'm learning, he says, and the corner of his mouth almost turns up. Dangerous habit, I tell him. Keep it up. He doesn't answer, just refills his coffee, a small truce in motion. Outside, the rain has stopped. The light coming through the blinds smells clean, like a city washing its hands. I take another sip, let the warmth spread, and breathe in the mix of coffee, paper, and peace. Freedom doesn't roar. Sometimes, it just smells like coffee and clean rain.